What up is Marcus with Dynasty Fun Dads, and if you're new to the channel, we are giving away some giveaways here in the near future, and we have done some jersey free giveaways in the past as well. You're here for the question, is Adrian Peterson the number one pickup? We're going to be going through some of these pickups, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and even my favorite tight end pickup of the week. In fact, I actually picked him last week up in redraft. We're just going to start off with tight end, and tight end, he is 10% owned, and I am one of the 10% because last week I realized, and so sometimes you have to kind of forecast the future. I knew that TJ Hawkinson in redraft was my starting tight end, and so I picked up Mr. Pat Freiermuth. And Pat Freiermuth is a rookie tight end, which sometimes we don't like, but no Eric Ebron there and no Juju there, so they're going to be doing a lot of dump-off stuff with Big Ben. And so I figured that he was going to be highly targeted and more of a safe pick versus like the Dan Arnolds, Ricky Seals-Jones, like all these different tight ends that I feel like, gosh, you don't know if you're going to get 2 for 27. You might not get anything. And Mercedes Lewis is another name to think about because of that Green Bay replacement of Tanyan. But Tanyan wasn't really producing very well anyway. So when all the receivers come back from COVID, if I would assume most of them do, then Mercedes Lewis is just going to be kind of to the back burner. But let's go back to Pat Freiermuth. Everyone talks about Kyle Pitts. Unfortunately, when you're Pat Freiermuth, who is, if you combine probably the 2020 class and 2021 class, he's easily the number 2 tight end. He's over Cole Kmet, he's over Troutman or any of these other tight ends, but yet he gets kind of in the shadow of Kyle Pitts because Kyle Pitts is this once-in-a-generation talent. But Pat Freiermuth was super good out of Penn State, and I loved his tape coming out, and I thought that he was a really, really good tight end, and I was like, hey, I think he's going to succeed at the next level. Is he going to be Kyle Pitts? No, because he doesn't have the athleticism. He's basically not a wide receiver. Pat Freiermuth is a tight end. Kyle Pitts is like a wide receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call him. So Pat Freiermuth, I think, is going to be the number one pickup. I mean, he had 78% of snaps, so he's out there on the field. So you have that ability to just get targeted. And he had a touchdown last week. So I know I was kind of like, I picked him up, but I was like, you got to save that tight end. You got to save that touchdown for when I need you, because Hawkinson, of course, now I want to buy and watch him do like 3 for 30. And I'll be like, I need that touchdown. Anyways, let's go through some wide receivers, and then we'll get to that running back, who the number one pickup is. Devonte Parker, 35% owned. He had 11 targets, 8 for 85. Jalen Waddle was the most targeted Miami Dolphin, but they are still going to be passing a ton. And you can see that Devonte Parker, when healthy, is probably going to be, I mean, the bigger player guy, the big play guy when it comes to, I guess, air yards. Jalen Waddle is incredibly hard to tackle, so you might get big plays out of him, but you're going to be low average depth of target. Low ADOT is what they call that. The other guy is Jameson Crowder, just because, again, most targeted, 8 for 84. You're talking about a guy with Mike White, probably not Joe Flacco. If they're going to be down a ton, Jameson Crowder could be that guy that gets you, especially in PPR, just hyper targeted in that regard. Let's go to quarterbacks just real quick before we get into that running back. And Taysom Hill is the number one pickup just because of his running ability. Now we have to make sure that he is back from concussion, the concussion protocol, or else it's going to be Trevor Siemian. And right now, it projected for some of these apps is Trevor Siemian, but know that Taysom Hill might be the guy. It's a little bit more risky because if you, let's just say, there's 3 quarterbacks out there. Let's just say the top 3 are like Wentz, maybe Matt Ryan, and Taysom Hill. If you pick Taysom Hill and he doesn't play, you might be down to a Trevor Siemian or even somewhere around those type of players. So just know it is a risk picking if you need the safety. Like, hey, I need a quarterback that for sure is going to play. Carson Wentz has been super consistent as of late. Ryan Tannehill, I had to drop him in a league, but the biggest problem is he plays the Rams, and so you are hoping for. I mean, it could be just a mess of a game for Tennessee as they try to figure out what to do without Derrick Henry, and that's the big question: is what do they do without Derrick Henry? Derrick Henry, of course, easily the number 1 running back in fantasy, and so easy before the year you'd be like, all right, Darrington Evans is the guy, but he's out for the year. He came back, he played 1 game, and he is out for season-ending IR. So now you're basically down to one of 3 options. So you have Jeremy McNichols, who's the receiving back to Henry. So whenever you saw Henry out, it was Jeremy McNichols, and he's the Dion Lewis, you could say, role of that he was playing in Tennessee. The next option is Adrian Peterson, and Adrian Peterson was, of course, free agent, didn't have a team, and so he was the most popular guy left because everyone else went to Baltimore, it seems like. It was Le'Veon Bell, it was Devonta Freeman, it was Latavius Murray. I think that's it. Yeah, I feel like they had one more, but that's all three went to the Ravens. So now it's the third option is, do they trade for a running back? And I think a perfect fit would be Melvin Gordon. Please unleash my Javonte. I love Javonte, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think Melvin Gordon is going to stick with Denver, and that's just going to be a frustrating thing. I think they're going to add a piece. It's just, who are they going to add? They have to add another body. Jeremy McNichols is not going to be the guy I pick. He is an option if you're maybe super late in the waiver wire priority, because honestly, Tannehill might throw a ton more. So you might be seeing him like kind of in the James White role versus where Damian Harris role will, and I'm just kind of comparing different kind of roles so you have an idea, because it's not going to be an amazing role, but Adrian Peterson, who I usually shy away from these veteran running backs, whether it's Latavius, whether it's Devonta Freeman, whether it's Le'Veon Bell, or even previous years when these running backs come in and I'm like, I don't want this old veteran that's 36 years old. Like, I don't want any piece of that. But in this case, Adrian Peterson is the number one pickup of this week. And the reason for it is simply because of touchdown upside. You're going to be talking about a guy that might fall into the end zone one time a week. Like, that is not out of the realm of possibilities. It seems like Derrick Henry was getting into the end zone 2-3 times a week. And so Adrian Peterson could easily be the goal line back for a Tennessee team that has been high scoring. They may score a little bit less, of course, because Derrick Henry is out, but Adrian Peterson plays that kind of bruiser role much better than probably much better than any other 36 or any other available choice. Adrian Peterson is a bruiser, and he's a guy that, I mean, you look at last year, 604 and 7 touchdowns, and you go, that wasn't great. He did play all 16 games, but 5 of those games he did have more than 10 fantasy points. And so when you have a guy who's on a lot better team, I mean, when he's been playing with teams, it's been Washington and Detroit, which are not good, not high-scoring teams. Now he gets to play with Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. He gets to play with a good roster around him. And so this could happen where he falls into the end zone. There's no other amazing options left when it comes to free agent pickups. We're going to go through a couple more running backs here. And if you need a 1 week fill-in, or if you're a James Robinson owner, Carlos Hyde, 7% owned, is the reason that I would pick up him. He's 9 for 32. But again, less of an option again than Adrian Peterson. And the other two options you could say are Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. And 2 touchdowns apiece from both of them. But gosh, that is a mess there. I don't know what to think of Eagle Land. Like, you could easily pick up Boston Scott, and then Kenneth Gainwell be the RB1 on that team. And you could easily pick up at both Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, and Jordan Howard could continue to roll the goal line back. It is a mess in Philadelphia. And you could pick up all 3, and Jalen Hurts run both touchdowns like he's been doing pretty much the entire year except this last week. So what does that mean? It means there are basically 4 running backs. Jalen Hurts, which I'm going to count as kind of a running back. I mean, he's been rushing a ton of rushing touchdowns. You have him, you have Boston Scott, you have Jordan Howard, and you have Kenneth Gainwell. It's a mess. I don't want any part of it, honestly. And so then you have that, or you have Adrian Peterson, who's going to have probably a big chunk, especially into that red zone territory. So him, my second choice would be McNichols, just because he is the passing down back. Again, if they find some of these games, it depends. If Tennessee's comes out and you see that they're just not a great, if they're struggling with their offense, they start getting behind in some of these games, I think McNichols could be a really good passing down PPR, more of the PPR back, and Adrian Peterson, of course, more of the standard back. And so then when we get to the 1 week fill-in, Carlos Hyde. That's all the different options. Let me know what you guys are thinking in some of the pickups here. Is Adrian Peterson your number 1 pickup? And of course, I'm not picking players that are above probably 40-50% rostered, because honestly, there's probably ESPN or any of these different leagues have so many inactive leagues that don't even pick up anybody. Or there's some leagues that are disallow picking up. There's basically like best ball drafts. And they do them through ESPN and some of these things where they can't pick up players. So is 50% really an accurate number? It's not, in my opinion. When you see 50%, it probably means like 70% of leagues, because it just means that majority of active leagues are going to be playing or picking up some of these players. Because even Pat Frymuth, who's 10% owned, and almost in every one of my redrafts, he's I would say probably it's not everyone. I would say half of my redrafts he's picked up in, and there's only 10%. And I look at Devonte Parker, and he's 35% owned, and I would say he's probably 60 to 70% owned in my in redraft leagues that I know. And then there's, so like you just look at that and you're like, well, so the numbers are a little different when you're in active leagues that are constantly picking up players and stuff and dropping players too. They're not dropping the OBJs and the Allen Robinsons and stuff, and it's like those guys are not doing good anyways. But again, those are some things, and watch out for some of those people that get dropped, because honestly, would I rather have Jameson Crowder or like an Allen Robinson? I just would rather have Allen Robinson and let him sit on my bench until something magical happens, or I can just package him in a trade somehow, some way. I'll do it. All right, this is Marcus Dynasty Football Dads. We'll see you tomorrow.
Now turn up.